What if the ground beneath your feet is not truly yours? What if every mountain, every river, every forest and desert you know as Earth is not a stage built for humanity, but a borrowed inheritance, the remnants of a home once claimed by another? We like to imagine ourselves as the first, the pinnacle, the destined rulers of this planet. But the Earth is ancient, 4.5 billion years of storms and fire, ice and ocean. Humanity, by comparison, has been here for a blink. If we think this land was meant for us, then perhaps we have mistaken a brief lease for an eternal title. Imagine peeling back the layers of time. Beneath our cities lie the ruins of older cities, and beneath those, fossils of older worlds. Dinosaurs ruled for 160 million years. Entire forests rose and fell before their reign even began. And long before trees, the oceans teemed with creatures alien to anything alive today. Across billions of years, life has come and gone in waves, each dominant species believing itself to be the center of creation, only to vanish, leaving behind nothing but bone, stone, and silence. So what if, somewhere in those vast spans of forgotten time, there was a species not unlike us? Not human, not ape, not dinosaur, but something else. Something with thought, with language, with fire. Something that built, cultivated, dreamed. A civilization swallowed by deep time, its cities crushed into stone, its monuments ground to dust, its memory erased by the slow, merciless erosion of ages. What if Earth has been borrowed land all along, and we are not its first tenants, but only its latest? It is a thought that chills and exhilarates all at once. Because if Earth belonged once to others, then their absence is a warning. They were here, and now they are gone. Their time ended. Their lease expired. And one day, ours will too. And if this question stirs something inside you, if it makes you want to dig deeper into the soil of the unknown, to uncover not only fossils but forgotten stories, then stay with us. Because this is not the only question Earth whispers. If you would follow the trail of vanished worlds and unseen futures, then join us. Subscribe, and let us search together through the strata of time. For a moment, let us ground this speculation in what we know. Earth's deep history is written in its rocks. Fossils tell us of trilobites scuttling across ocean floors 500 million years ago, of dragonflies with wingspans wider than eagles, darting through primeval skies, of great reptiles dominating jungles that stretched from pole to pole. And yes, we know of extinction events. The Permian catastrophe 252 million years ago that wiped out 90% of life, the asteroid 66 million years ago that ended the age of dinosaurs. Each time, the world reset. Each time, a new species rose to dominance. But here is the unsettling gap. The fossil record is not complete. Entire epochs are missing. Layers of Earth's crust have been subducted, melted back into magma, erased forever. Millions of years leave behind no trace at all. Which means this: if an intelligent species had lived, even thrived, tens or hundreds of millions of years before us, its traces might be gone. Its buildings crumbled, its metals corroded, its plastics pulverized into dust, its very bones ground to nothing. Only the faintest signatures might remain: chemical anomalies, isotopic patterns, disturbances in the deep geological layers. Scientists call this the Silurian hypothesis, named after the fictional reptilian race in Doctor Who. The idea that we could never be certain we are the first technological species on Earth. And if we are not the first, then we are the inheritors. Earth itself is borrowed land, not created for us, but simply passed along, one dominant tenant to another. The dinosaurs held it for millions of years. We have held it for thousands. Who can say what held it before them, or what will hold it after us? The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. To even say that number is to feel its scale distort in your mind. Human history stretches back maybe 10,000 years in recognizable form, 30,000 if you count our earliest art, perhaps 200,000 if you include the first true Homo sapiens. Beyond that, even our ancestors blur into shadow. Yet 4.5 billion is not thousands. It is not even millions. It is eons. It is hundreds of millions stacked upon hundreds of millions, each epoch a layer of forgotten world beneath our feet. The science of geology is our only window into this immensity, and even it is fractured. Tectonic plates slide and devour one another, recycling the very crust of the Earth back into magma. Only fragments of the earliest continents survive. The oldest rocks we have are mere survivors, battered remnants of a planet that has erased most of its own memory. In fact, less than 1% of the Earth's surface preserves rocks older than 2.5 billion years. Think of that. Over half the age of the planet is almost gone from its record, like torn pages from a book we can never recover. And yet, within what remains, we find stories of worlds that are utterly alien. At 1 billion years ago, oxygen filled the air for the first time in abundance, transforming a toxic planet into one where complex life could breathe. At 541 million years ago, in the Cambrian explosion, life erupted in a frenzy of new forms: trilobites, sponges, chordates, creatures that seem like hallucinations preserved in shale. Then came forests, insects, reptiles, dinosaurs, mammals. And at least 5 times, nearly all of it was swept away by extinction. The most devastating was the Permian extinction, 252 million years ago. Volcanoes tore through Siberia, filling the sky with carbon dioxide, acidifying oceans, suffocating ecosystems. In a geological instant, 90% of marine species vanished, along with 70% of life on land. Earth was almost emptied. If there had been any intelligent species before that time, their world would have burned to ash, leaving behind almost nothing but a thin chemical scar in the rocks. Scientists sometimes call our present moment the Anthropocene, a proposed new epoch defined not by natural forces, but by us. We have altered the chemistry of the atmosphere, spiked levels of carbon, nitrogen, and phosphates, scattered plastics across the oceans, and left isotopic signatures of nuclear tests in the soil. If humans were to vanish tomorrow, future geologists, whether human, alien, or something else, would find these anomalies in the rock record. They would see the sudden spike of carbon, the strange plastics turned into microfossils, the artificial isotopes that do not occur naturally. They would say, something technological lived here. Something reshaped the Earth. And this leads us to a profound question. If another species had risen long before us, would we be able to tell? Astrobiologist Adam Frank and climate scientist Gavin Schmidt posed this very idea in 2018, calling it the Silurian hypothesis. They argued that industrial civilizations, even highly advanced ones, might leave little obvious trace after millions of years. Metals corrode. Buildings collapse. Plastics, in a few million years, break down into dust. In as little as 10 million years, almost everything made by us could be gone. Only subtle chemical fingerprints might endure: carbon spikes, isotope shifts, sudden extinctions. Which means that if an older species once borrowed this land, their world might already be buried beneath ours, invisible except for hints so subtle we cannot yet see them. The very silence of the fossil record might not mean they never existed. It may only mean they did not last. And here is the chilling symmetry. If their presence has been erased by time, then so will ours. Humanity's skyscrapers, satellites, ships, and monuments, everything we have built, will one day be dust. The Earth will grind us into silence, just as it has ground all things before us. And perhaps millions of years from now, a new intelligence will rise and ask the same question. Were we truly the first? Or are we walking on borrowed land? If this thought unsettles you, it should. But it should also ignite your curiosity. Because these are not just idle questions of science fiction. They are real frontiers of knowledge. And if you want to be at the edge of those discoveries, to step into the long corridors of time and search them with us, then stay close. Subscribe, and together we will follow these shadows into the depths of Earth's forgotten ages. If Earth is borrowed land, then the first unsettling truth is this: everything we know as permanent is temporary. Civilizations vanish. Species vanish. Even entire ecosystems are erased. We think our roads, our dams, our megacities will endure forever, but geology laughs at that. Rome is 2,000 years old, the pyramids 4,000, Stonehenge perhaps 5. In geological terms, those are not even seconds. Give them a few tens of thousands of years, and weather alone will crumble them to dust. In 1,000,000 years, nothing human will be left standing. In 10 million, almost nothing will remain at all. The second truth is more disturbing still. If another intelligent species rose long before us, their time on Earth may have been longer, richer, and more advanced than ours. Dinosaurs ruled this planet for over 160 million years. We have been a technological civilization for only a few thousand. What might a species achieve if they had millions of years to grow? To shape the planet? To experiment with energy, art, knowledge? And yet they are not here, which means that however advanced they became, they did not last. Their lease on this land ended. And if theirs did, why should ours not? The third revelation lies in extinction itself. The earth is not a gentle landlord. It destroys its tenants again and again. Supervolcanoes erupt, shrouding the sky in ash and choking out sunlight. Asteroids slam into oceans and continents, unleashing waves and firestorms that annihilate nearly everything. Climate shifts with brutal suddenness. Ice ages advance, deserts expand, oxygen plummets, seas turn acidic. Each time, life is humbled. Each time, survivors crawl from the wreckage to begin again. If there was ever another thinking species, they too face these trials. And one day we will as well. The fourth truth emerges when we look not to fossils, but to myths. Across cultures, across continents, we find stories of golden ages long gone, of floods that erased whole peoples, of gods and titans who once walked the earth. What if these are not just imagination? What if they are fractured echoes, memories that have passed down through eons, distorted, mythologized, but seated in real events, remnants of a species older than us, a culture erased but not entirely forgotten? Folklore may be the faintest archaeological record of civilizations lost to time. And the fifth, perhaps most shocking revelation is this: if Earth is borrowed land, then it may not always be ours. We are not guaranteed to remain its stewards. Whether by self-inflicted collapse, by cosmic catastrophe, or by the slow grinding of time, our turn at the helm will end. Perhaps another species will inherit it after us, descendants of octopuses, ravens, or something stranger. Or perhaps, in a cycle that repeats across the ages, the Earth will birth yet another intelligence, just as it may have done before, each species believing itself the first, each doomed to forget its predecessors. And here lies the cliff's edge. What if we are not unique? What if every civilization is just one in an unending relay, each rising, each falling, each borrowing this land until it can hold it no longer? In that cycle, we are not special. We are only temporary. But if you feel that shiver, that tightening of the chest at the thought, then you understand why this question matters. Because to know whether Earth is borrowed land is not just to know the past, it is to know our fate. And if you want to continue pressing further, past the horizon of certainty into speculation and possibility, then stay with us. Subscribe and step into the next chapter of this journey, where we imagine the worlds that might have been before us and the ones that may yet come after. Let us imagine the first path. Suppose that tens of millions of years ago, long before the rise of mammals, a reptilian species developed intelligence. Perhaps they began as pack hunters in the late Triassic or early Cretaceous, communicating with complex calls, coordinating their hunts. Over millions of years, those calls evolved into true language. Fire was discovered not as a spark of chance, but as a slow mastery of volcanic heat. Cities may have risen, stone or coral constructions along ancient coastlines, now erased by shifting seas and the grinding of continents. When the asteroid struck 66 million years ago, perhaps it was not only the dinosaurs that died. Perhaps it was also the fall of their civilization, obliterated so completely that we find only the bones of their cousins, not the ruins of their dreams. Another path leads us to the ocean. Imagine a cephalopod intelligence, creatures like octopuses or squids, already masters of camouflage, problem-solving, and tool use. Given tens of millions of years of evolutionary time, they might have developed societies beneath the waves, constructing shells not just for protection, but as architecture. Their artifacts would not survive well in the fossil record, dissolved by ocean currents, buried in sediment, lost to tectonic drift. If Earth is borrowed land, perhaps its older tenants were not land dwellers at all, but architects of seas, who rose and fell beneath the very waters we swim in today. A third path takes us into even deeper time. Before dinosaurs, before reptiles, even before trees, strange creatures roamed the Carboniferous swamps. Insects as large as hawks, amphibians the size of crocodiles, ecosystems thick with oxygen and fire. What if, in that alien world, intelligence stirred in a lineage that never reached us? Their bodies, soft and fragile, left little trace. Their culture vanished when oxygen levels fell, when the forests collapsed, when the balance of the atmosphere shifted. We would never know they were there, save for a chemical signature in coal seams, or a faint oddity in the isotopes of stone. And then there is the most unsettling path, the possibility that they are not gone. What if some older species survived its collapse by retreating underground, or beneath the seas, or even into dimensions we cannot yet perceive? What if myths of hidden kingdoms, of beings who live in the shadows of the earth, are fragments of truth? We laugh at the idea of subterranean or hidden civilizations, but we forget. The ocean floor is less mapped than the surface of Mars. Cavern systems stretch for miles beneath our feet. Whole ecosystems exist in darkness, unknown to science until just decades ago. What if the land we walk upon is not just borrowed from the past, but shared in ways we cannot yet see? Finally, there is a path that loops forward rather than back. What if the older species was not lost entirely but influenced us? What if traces of their knowledge survive, encoded in myths, symbols, even in our DNA? What if humanity's sudden leap into language, culture, and civilization was not entirely our own, but a spark inherited from tenants who walked this earth before us? If so, then we are not only borrowing land, we are borrowing fire. And that fire may burn long after we are gone. Each of these paths is speculation, yes, but each is rooted in possibility. The fossil record is incomplete. The geological archive is full of silences. The earth hides more than it reveals. And in those gaps, whole civilizations could have lived and died, their traces erased by the endless churn of time. But this is the fork where science ends and wonder begins. And if you want to follow all these diverging trails, if you want to imagine not just the world that was, but the worlds that might have been, then come further with us. Subscribe, and let us walk these alternate histories together, one path at a time. If Earth is borrowed land, then what does that make us? Tenants? Custodians? Or merely passers-by in a long relay, holding the torch for a moment before it is passed on again? We like to believe that the planet belongs to us, that we are its rightful heirs, its chosen stewards. But perhaps that belief is nothing more than arrogance dressed as destiny. Perhaps we are only caretakers of something that has hosted countless species before us, and will host countless more after we are gone. Think of the timescale. Our entire written history fits within a few thousand years. The lives of empires, Rome, Egypt, Mesopotamia, are measured in centuries. Even the span of Homo sapiens as a species, 200,000 years, is a flicker against the billions that Earth has known. To the rocks beneath us, to the mountains and seas, we are no different than the trilobites or the ammonites, a brief experiment in form and intelligence. If older species once rose and fell, they too may have thought themselves eternal. They too may have believed the earth was theirs. And yet they were wrong. This recognition humbles us, but it also binds us to something larger. If Earth is borrowed, then so is everything, our cities, our families, even our lives. Nothing we hold is permanent. But that does not make it meaningless. In fact, it makes it precious. The fleeting moment we have on this planet is not ownership, but stewardship. We inherit a world shaped by others, and we will leave it shaped for those who follow. And here lies the deepest reflection. If others came before us and vanished, we too will vanish. Our skyscrapers will crumble. Our satellites will fall. Our names will be forgotten. But our actions now will ripple forward. The climate we leave behind, the scars or gifts we etch into the land, will outlive us. If Earth is borrowed, then what matters is not possession but legacy. Will we leave the land ravaged or renewed? Will the next tenants inherit a wasteland or a home? Perhaps that is the truest meaning of this question. To ask whether Earth is borrowed from an older species is to confront our own impermanence, and with it, our responsibility. We do not own this planet. We share it, for a brief time, with the memory of those who came before and the hope of those who will come after. And if that thought resonates with you, if you want to keep walking these vast corridors of time, where science becomes philosophy and speculation becomes reflection, then come further with us. Subscribe, and let us keep unfolding the questions that remind us who we are, and how fragile, and how extraordinary it is that we are here at all. Perhaps the greatest illusion of all is that the Earth belongs to us. When we are young, we are taught to think of our world as permanent, as solid, as ours by right. But the truth whispered by the rocks, by the fossils, by the endless churn of ages is this: nothing here has ever truly belonged to anyone. The land is borrowed, always borrowed, borrowed from the creatures who crawled from the sea, borrowed from the forests that breathed before us, borrowed from the dinosaurs who ruled longer than we can comprehend, and perhaps borrowed, too, from others who once thought themselves eternal, who built, dreamed, and vanished before time swept them away. And one day the Earth will be borrowed again, by whatever comes after us, by the species that inherits the seas we warm, the skies we change, the land we shape. Our mark may fade, but the story will continue. Always the story continues. So when you stand barefoot on the ground, or watch the tide roll in, or look up at the stars, remember, you are walking on ancient land, carrying ancient fire, part of a cycle far greater than you can see. You are not the first to walk here. You will not be the last. And if this question lingers with you, if you feel the weight of that inheritance, the shiver of being only one chapter in a book too vast to read, then come further. There are more questions waiting, more mysteries beneath the surface. Subscribe, and let us keep searching together for what lies behind the veil of time. For in the end, to ask if Earth is borrowed land is to glimpse a truth both terrifying and beautiful, that we are temporary but never meaningless. We are part of a continuum, a story without end, passed from one species to another like a flame through darkness. And perhaps that is the greatest legacy of all, that long after we are gone, the land will still whisper, the oceans will still sing, and new beings will still wonder, just as we do now. Whose footsteps came before mine?